everyone, welcome back to the Be More podcast, where we inspire you to be more of every role within the Salesforce ecosystem and beyond. For today's episode, we are exploring what it takes to be more Credential Ambassador, and I'm joined today by Justyna. So if you could start by introducing yourself, please.
Hello, thank you for having me, Tom. So I'm Justyna. I'm platform owner at one of Salesforce end customers, and I'm responsible for everything Salesforce related. I'm in Salesforce environment for around 10 years and 5 years as CGL, being a co-leader of Amsterdam user group. And for last 2 years, also being involved as Credential Ambassador.
Okay. Awesome. Wow. I'm looking forward to this chat because I'm a Credential Ambassador as well. So we'll see how our experiences differ. But let's kick off by explaining to me, what is a Credential Ambassador? Like, what does that mean?
So Credential Ambassador is the person who is working with Salesforce and other people, other Trailblazers, other subject matter experts, as the Salesforce call us, to work on to create new credentials or keep credentials up to date, to create new super badges, or update the existing ones.
Okay, fine. And it does, I understand you don't venture in this direction, but it does extend to the Salesforce exams as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So thinking about this now as a volunteer who is helping Salesforce put new super badges through their paces, or working with them to update super badges that might need some attention or an update, how do you fit this in amongst the other things that you do in the community? Like, we've touched on some already, but how does this kind of work in terms of being able to do this amongst everything else?
So it's not, on one hand, it's not ongoing process, right? So Salesforce contacts you, or we giving them our availability, when can we do it, if it fits. So it's not like you sign for something and they presume that you're always available. There are different projects during the year, and then you can get involved if you have time. It's also depending on the time schedule. It's normally in the evenings, because it's to make sure that every time zone is included. So for me, it's mostly evenings. And how I do find time, so I can tell you that I love collaborating with other people. And even if I'm tired before the meeting, after the meeting, I'm like, boost up. Yeah, okay, that was cool. So it's amazing, because it's like sharing experiences, right? And sharing use cases that we can use or we can provide. So it's really cool. So we always find time for that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a big part of it for me as well, is like connecting with other people that you wouldn't otherwise connect with. Like, they might be on the other side of the world to you, right? And working together to make sure that these super badges are reflective of the real world and our real life experiences. Do you think that's part of it for you as well?
Yes, and then you have people from different industries with different experiences, so everyone can chip in. So almost every time I'm learning something new, it's like, oh, I never used that. Even after 10 years working with sales, it's like, oh, I never used this tool, or I never had this use case. I never thought about it. So maybe something to think about in my current role.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And thinking about this now, and the role of Credential Ambassador, right? If there was somebody that was looking to get started out in this role, what type of person do you think kind of best suits that role? And what tips, advice would you give to them to get started?
So I think that you need to be open and be curious. You need to be able to commit some time to have this calls and meetings in the evenings, because mostly it's done at least on the calls, even though we have normally the Slack to exchange the experience after. You need to be committed. You need to make sure that you can listen other people's points of view, and not doing my way or no way, because there's a lot of people who have different opinions. And also sometimes the business use cases that you propose or we talk about, from my perspective, are not the best ones. So it's like, okay, I understand now the point. So it's being open, being curious, I think, the most.
Okay. And is there a form or something like that where people can go to get started, or sign up and register their interest?
Yes, so normally there is an article, get involved, can be found by Trailblazer community.
Yeah.
And then there is a link to create a Salesforce subject matter profile. So you're giving the link to your LinkedIn, to Trailhead account, like that. They can see also. You say what is your interest, where are
Yeah.
you, where is your knowledge, which clouds,
Yeah.
which specific tools you are using, in which areas you can be subject matter experts.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. And I'm familiar with that form as well. And we'll pop the link in the description for anyone tuning in. From my own experience, I think it only took like a couple of weeks to be matched up to a project, right? I don't think I was waiting for a long time. Did you have similar experiences once you filled in the form?
So it depends on which
Mm.
area. If I can say yes, if it was really
Yeah.
matching uh, with my experience, yes, it was really quick. Because, but also it's sometimes because when you go to the site, you put your profile. If Salesforce is not preparing anything, it's not working currently. Of course, they will not contact you. They will say, okay, we will reach out when we need.
Yeah.
Sometimes, so this can take longer sometimes because they don't work every single day or something else. But normally you can also see sometimes they are even posting on LinkedIn that they are looking for subject matter
Yeah.
experts from this area. So then if you apply, they're sharing the same link. So then you can also click, update your profile saying, okay, I gain this certification and this will be useful. And then yes, it does not take a long time.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And now thinking about this as your own journey as a credential ambassador, and you've been doing this for how long now, do you think?
Around 2 years, I think.
Yeah, I think it's about the same for me as well. If you were to start out again, right, is there anything you would change or do differently, do you think?
So be less shy at the beginning, maybe, because because there are also different areas
Mm,
of this project. So at the beginning, I was like, when we're talking about content, who this badge or super badge or certification will be for, then I sometimes like, oh no, I am not that. So when you see, you find yourself among the people that have more experience, have a titles that, and you are like, yeah, platform owner, okay. So I know that it took me some time to get started, to start talking, to just
mhm.
brainstorm, to give my ideas. But then,
Yeah,
yeah, that would be it.
yeah. Well, I think there's a really valuable lesson buried amongst that, right? Just because you might not be a CTO doesn't mean that your point of view or your experiences are any lesser, right? It just means that you have different point of view and different experiences to someone else. Like I worked with quite a few different trailblazers doing this, and I don't think people have like actively like disagreed with me or anything like that, but they've just been able to add their own layers based on maybe they work in the financial services industry or something, and maybe I haven't worked in that industry before, so they were able to give me kind of additional context. Do you see that happening when you do collaborate with other people?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Everyone is so open, everyone shares the experience and discuss the
Yeah.
business use case, or we can now adding to each other's experiences. It's like, oh, we can do that, but
Yeah.
and we can maybe add this one too, this element, because it's cool. So it's really open discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So if you were to try to summarize or kind of list out skills or attributes it took to be a credential ambassador, we've lent on a few already, right? But what kind of phrases or personality traits do you think kind of comes to mind for somebody in this role?
So yeah, as I mentioned before, being open, being curious, being able to share the experiences and discuss things that they want to discuss, being committed, because of course that is time consuming, if you can say like that. You are committing for a few
Mm,
hours per week, or even more, depends at which level, or if it's a batch or super batch, how big is the project, right? So being able to not being afraid to ask questions, to make sure that you also understand. No, don't be shy. It's like, oh, I think that I'm know what I'm doing here, or what is it about. Being just as honest as you can with your experiences. If sometimes you're
mm-hmm.
lacking the experience, then say it also. Then maybe you can be more useful at the end when there is a testing, if you cannot really come up
Yeah.
with the solutions. That was my first. I was kind of quiet during the first phases, but then on the testing, because I'm detail oriented and I can like do it and redo it, and I'm never tired of that.
Yeah.
So I could be useful there. So even if at the beginning you feel like not sure what I'm doing here, if it's really for me, then you can see that with other people and openness, and everyone is just sharing feedback immediately. It just
Okay, awesome. Well, I think I can certainly relate to that as well. Like, there's been a couple of opportunities, and for my experience, it kind of involved a little bit too much Apex, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, if I can test this, or if I'm even going to be able to write that Apex to pass the super badge. So I think it is important to be honest, because if suddenly you're kind of in a room with all these people that know everything there is to know about Apex, and then somebody asks you a question, and then otherwise you're kind of somewhat embarrassed to say, well, actually, I don't know anything about Apex. So I think that's important, and there's definitely kind of leaning a little bit on what you said earlier about learning. Like, I've learned so much by being involved in this program. Like, I've spoken about the program at Dreamforce as well, and in fact, during one of the conversations during Dreamforce, and I had to look in my notes just now to remember this because I'd forgotten. You can't keep everything in. Like, it wasn't until I helped test a specific super badge, which was the Connected App Security Super Badge. I knew what a connected app was, and I knew what identity provider was, and I knew what a service provider was, but I wasn't really confident in that knowledge, right? So I kind of came at that super badge and testing that one with a little bit less real world experience than anybody else, right? But I was still able to test it. And then after running through it and understanding how it worked and what those terms meant, I was then able to go on and study more and achieve the identity and access management architect certification from starting out on that super badge, knowing high level what a connected app was, and then leaving that process more comfortable, confident in that, and then going on to demonstrate my own learning and experience by getting certified as well. So I don't know if you have any specific examples or anything that you've kind of experienced that's similar to that.
So there was one super badge that at the beginning when I sign up with the content, I already said, no, I'm sorry, I will just be, it's not my area, but I can help with testing. Then I can figure it out to see if my level, because normally they were saying that the user, the person, the trailblazer for who we're doing this super badge is this persona. So it's like I can relate, but I seriously cannot help with anything else. So maybe I can test. And then in the testing, I also said oh, this one, for example, from this to this, it was too big jump in my knowledge. So I really needed to research the thing. Is that what we expect? Is my level really low, or you want to add another clue for Trailblazer to do this super batch or to finish this batch? So I did, I think, step down once, saying, yeah, now it's not, because I know that I can't provide any examples, anything, but I could focus mostly on testing.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, that's great. And from my own experience, and I'm sure you're going to say the same, like the Salesforce team are completely open to that as well, right? They appreciate that you're giving your own time to this thing. Every now and then you may get rewarded with swag. That's kind of part of the deal. And yeah, so they appreciate, I think the honesty is really important in any relationship, really, and just be like, well, actually, I'm not comfortable in this Apex thing or LWC thing or whatever it may be that you're not familiar with, because ultimately, if you're not honest, then you could hold them back, or they could be relying on you as an expert in something that you don't actually know that much about. So I think that's super important. So
and for that,
think
even
about
to
this
be,
now.
sorry, if I can add on that, because this is also important why
Yeah.
you have this subject matter expert profile, right? So you put there what is your
Yes.
knowledge. So of course you can put that this one I'm beginner, but I'm still able to help, or because it's also like, if you do need to
Yeah.
have some knowledge of the subject to make sure that team can build together, right? You don't want to be there just to, oh, I will learn. It's not fully learning
No.
experience from Salesforce. It's just you learn because you share the experiences, but you do need to have the basis to be there and to participate.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with that. And I think another part of it and this is a really important thing in particular for Salesforce as well. Like, as credential subject matter experts, we are under an NDA, which means that we can't share specific solutions or specifics about how the process works. We can talk about working with each other and the experiences that we get from that, but Salesforce want to protect the integrity of their credentials, because I guess otherwise they wouldn't need a program like this, right? If the credentials didn't have the integrity that they do. And I think another part of this that's really important, again, maybe more so from the Salesforce point of view, is super badges are credentials, right? Do you ever come across people that don't realize that, and maybe they might ask you for how to complete a super badge, or like advice, or things like that? Do you ever experience that kind of in your day-to-day role or within the community?
I saw that a few times on the community, people asking, "Oh, I'm stuck with this super badge. Can someone help me?" And of course, then you get like, would love to, but you can't really do that because it's a
Exactly.
credential, right? So you cannot do that. You're obliged. I had once, I think, person connecting with me because when we're working on the project, of course, we don't say, "Oh, I'm working on this super badge now. I will be the best one." But after it's published and after it's there, Salesforce even mentions sometimes the names of the people of the team. So then I had one person contacting me. It's like, "Oh, so I'm stuck here." It's like, "Yeah, okay, maybe I can give you some links to help articles that will guide you, but I can't really provide you the answer."
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a good way to put it. Salesforce see this as the equivalent of asking for an answer during an exam, right? You wouldn't do it. So you shouldn't ask for an answer for a super badge either, because they are credentials too. An exam and a super badge are two different types of credentials. So I think that's super important. And yes, you're right. While we are developing things, we can't talk about what we're developing until it's released into the public arena, because what we're working on might not ever see the light of day. I don't know if I've actually ever been on a project. And I think all of my things have been released eventually, but we could be working on something and Salesforce actually decide, oh, I'm not going to release that exam, or I'm not going to release that super badge. So that is part of our non-disclosure agreement with Salesforce as well, which again, it is just something to be aware of. So kind of wrapping this up, we've already spoken about the link, which we're going to pop in the description for people to sign up and get started themselves. But other than that, how can people connect with you and perhaps engage with other content and other resources that you put out that might help them within the Salesforce community?
So, as I mentioned before, for people based in Europe and in Amsterdam, I'm co-leader of Amsterdam User Group. So please join us if you're in Amsterdam. And if not, I'm quite active on LinkedIn. Let's just say like that. So please, if you're interested, please connect with me and let's start chatting.
Thanks again for chatting to me today. I think it's going to help some people, and hopefully we're going to recruit a few more credential subject matter experts as a result. So thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.